Hello, friends. Welcome to the More You Know podcast. I'm your host, Brian Yu. If you're always curious and wanting to learn something new, then this podcast is for you. For an hour a week, join me as I learn from people all around the world about their hobbies and interests, and hopefully it will inspire you to do further research on these topics. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Today we have Bill Trevesky on the podcast, and he's here to talk about generalism versus specialism. And I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Bill Trofesky, and I'm here to talk about generalists and why they succeed in a specialized world that we have in today's day and age.
Can you give the definition of a generalist and a specialist?
Basically, a generalist is everyone likes to think they're a generalist because everyone thinks they have a general idea of everything. But generalists tend to take it to the next step. They take some solid research about, say, psychology, philosophy, engineering, fishing. It's sort of the Renaissance man of the 21st century, you could say. And a specialist is somebody who gets their doctorate in surgical procedures. Somebody who has spent all their time, all their focus on a certain topic. So while a generalist has a general solid idea, foundation of multiple genres, a specialist specializes and narrows down on one's particular topic.
Interesting. You said that you were a college student right now?
Yep, I'm currently a senior at the University of Connecticut. Go Huskies.
Oh, wow. Congrats. Question about generalists and specialists in a college dynamic. So, are you like to start off, what's your major really?
Well, I'm currently a mechanical engineer, and I'm in my first internship right now, and it's fun. I'll say that.
See, would you consider yourself a specialist then in this moment, or I know that mechanical engineering it goes over a lot of other aspects of engineering. So would that be a generalist like style?
And I would say it definitely is specialist in the sense that I'm narrowing down. Like you're starting off as an engineer, then you specialize in mechanical engineer, and then you gotta specialize in. I'm looking at aerodynamics now, so I'm definitely specializing in a sense.
I don't remember if you said this in the beginning, but did you say that generalists usually typically succeed in a work environment setting,
Um,
or do you believe that?
well, what we'll find is, well, first actually with the education thing, uh, while I am very narrowed down, what we need to do is, if you look at Scotland, the first 2 years of a college student, they're able to look around in different aspects, different careers, and explore before they pick their particular major. And why we say that, and why generalists triumph in a specialized world, is because today's day and age. Also, I'm taking this info I'm getting. I'm not BSing it. I've read this book called Range. Great book. I have it next to me actually, by David Epstein. And a few articles too at the internship when I'm slacking a little bit. But so what you find is today's day and age is very specialized. You take a doctor, they go through 8 years plus, and then they focus on a very specific topic. A doctor's focuses on the feet, another one focuses on the heart, and that's great, and you need that. But it becomes overdone in the workforce, in the business structure. And why you need a generalist is because what you find, and many examples I can bring up later, are once you become too narrowed down in your field, you start to miss out on the bigger picture. You start missing out on the leaders who are able to guide the specialists, the ones who are able to think outside the box. Like, would you like an example?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so Yokoi, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He's actually Nintendo first started, like all companies. Nintendo was a very relatively small startup company, of course. So Yokoi is one of the reasons they got to where they are. Competing against, well, at the time Game Boy was coming out, competing against Sony and other companies, they were very ahead of the game. They were able to bring out the new LCD screens, the new high-end technology no batteries in your device, portable devices. And what he was able to do is be a generalist in the sense that he took people who were great engineers in a certain aspect, people who knew a lot about well, no, not marketing, but basically what it comes down to is he created the Game and Watch, the Nintendo's smaller rundown device, and he did that by taking multiple. There's two different directions I want to go. I'll start off with lateral thinking.
Okay.
So, like I said, his competitors narrowed down. They became very progressed in their specialized field. They improved on their devices and made it better and better. What he did was lateral thinking. So he took an old device or an old genre and basically improved upon it, which became the Game and Watch. While the Game Boy was the higher end, more modern, the Game and Watch was cheap, $50, did the job great, had some old games, but made them better and updated them. And that's just a modeling strategy that stuck with Nintendo through their Wii when the PS3, Xbox 360 came out. You had this handheld device that you can swing around because it was fun. It's old technology. They've had that for years prior. And now the Nintendo Switch, where they kind of bring that handheld device back in a more modern sense. I don't remember the first question, but I just thought that was a trail I wanted to bring up at one point.
So so take for example someone who graduated from college already. I like take me for example. I graduated from college with a degree in supply chain management, but I also have a broad knowledge of other areas. For example, like blockchain technology, the technology under Bitcoin. I know a lot of like application uses and all that, and I know how blockchain works, but I don't know like the back end processes, like the coding and what it takes to make a blockchain. So all my ideas of like how a blockchain could go into this sector or this sector makes sense, but how do I kind of like shift from supply chain to also my knowledge of blockchain?
Okay. So so if I'm getting this right, you're asking how why being a generalist would be preferable in some situations versus a specialist?
Yeah, because like sometimes like you aren't really able to show your knowledge of a specific area because a lot of employers and workforces look for someone who specializes in something in college.
Okay, okay. Definitely.
Hence your degree.
Okay, okay. So you want a specialist repetitive in a repetitive task, something that's been done prior, something that you need somebody who's good at it for, and something like, well, maybe like what you said, because I don't know too much about that, so I can't say exactly. But think of what's a good example is golf. It's a very repetitive task, or in a workforce, something similar. So, say a particular surgery or stock markets. No, that's a different thing. But something repetitive that you've done repeatedly and you are a master in, that's when you want a specialist. While something that is being developed constantly, something new, innovative, you have to adapt to the new system, you have to adapt to different companies around you, that's when you want a generalist. So something narrowed down, specialist, something different, generalist. The example, well, the simple example to start it off is Tiger Woods. He started off when 7 months old, and he became a great golfer. All he did was golf every single day, and it's a very repetitive sport, just like chess with the Polgars back in I forget the years, but that's a very repetitive task. You do the same swing, you just adjust it to the situation. While generalists will appear in the majority of Jimi Hendrix, Prince, the majority of musicians, the majority of any other sport like tennis, say, or football or basketball, when you have to adapt to the new climate quickly, that's when you want a generalist, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, because because I feel like I know a lot of like I know a lot about like certain areas, but I feel like they're underutilized some days because I know a lot about this sector and this sector, but I'm only using my efforts toward one sector. And I want, and it kind of makes me want to like progress of like how I can kind of find like a synergy to find, uh, just to kind of like combine my bachelor's degree and like my interests together. But I feel like that's very hard within the common workforce.
Yeah, I understand. And in the common workforce, there will be different situations for different occasions.
Yeah.
Like
And
something.
if
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, you can go ahead with yours. I was just gonna ask you another question that's kind of not on this topic.
Okay. Um. Well, something interesting is there's this website. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. The name of it. It will come to me. But there's this website where you can go online and specialists say, well, here's an example. NASA one time had to, Innocentuve, 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 yeah, that's it. Well, spelling. NASA had this issue. They couldn't predict solar particle storms. They had this issue going on. All these specialists in their particular field. So what they did was they went on this website. They asked for help from outside sources, and this retired engineer was able to solve it by using radio waves picked up by telescopes. I don't know exactly what that means or how he did it, but basically he was able to look at it from an outside source using telescopes. Or what a better one would be is uh, Exxon oil tanker. A bunch of oil leaked into an ocean, became a huge issue because it's like this slushy mess filling up the ocean. And this guy, this chemist, was able to realize that, well, they posted on the website again, and he was able to realize that looking at like a slushy where you have the slush at the bottom and you can't get it up, by looking at that somehow and using his mind, he was able to use concrete vibrators, they were called. Again, I don't know what that means, but using his own knowledge, that's what he came up with. That's what was said in the book, and that's how he was able to fix the issue because it kind of nullified the mucky oil in the ocean and was able to make it easier to scoop up to reduce the pollution.
If someone is a generalist and they have this like wide knowledge of topics, how would you say that they keep up to date with each one of them? Because I know that, take for example, like a computer programmer. New languages are being used every single day, but they still have to polish up on older languages. So I would imagine that would be kind of like the same as a generalist who has a wide knowledge base. How would they really keep up with every single one?
Well, having a great memory is something I wish I had a little bit better of because it's really hard to do. I have some notes in front of me, so I'm not BSing anything. Little double checks, but basically, it's just really hard to do. You have to consistently re-update your knowledge. And so, if you look back to things you learned in high school, history, it could get thrown out the window. So what you have to do is just reapply, re relearn some of the knowledge you find. The better you know it, the the easier it is to refine and recapture. But you can't memorize something and keep it in your memory stored forever. It's impossible. You just have to. It's like a guitar. You practice it, you become great. You leave it for 5, or a language is better actually. People who learn languages give it 5 years, 10 years, and some of them already lose most of it. And actually, what overlaps with generalism, well, in memory, is basically a little sidetrack. But I remember learning a lot about education and our education system. And one of the major flaws about it is our society is too focused on memorization.
I
What
agree.
yep. What you'll find with Scotland and, well, especially Finland, best education in the world. Um, shockingly, even though they don't have homework until, was it, eighth grade? But yeah, it becomes so focused on memorization here in America that you don't get to critically think, or you don't get to actually figure out problems on your. All right, the best way to memorize something is to and struggle and look at it in as many different aspects as you can, the problem you're looking at, because that way your brain actually incorporates it. While if you were to memorize, if you just repeat the same process over and over again, when the test comes, you may be able to write it down, jot it down. But there's so many different things in life that you use that approach to, it will go out the window by a month. And I can especially attend to that as a college student. Um, but yeah, the more you
How
struggle, the better you
how
remember.
how would you suggest that people kind of get out of the habit of the memorization? Because I feel like a lot in college, with the exams that professors are giving, it's a lot of memorize these facts, and very few of them nowadays I feel like are going with the approach of understand this concept and apply it to the situation.
I That's a hard one because it's kind of a lose lose. What I found from
Yeah.
my personal experience is when I memorize and just, well, when I just repeat the same study techniques, or when I just short term memorize, I end up getting better grades. My grade looks better. But by the next week or next 2 weeks, it's thrown out. I forget it.
Mm-hmm.
While, like I said, you have to struggle to actually memorize something, that struggling takes time. You can't learn a new topic, struggle it, look in different patterns, and pass the test in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's very complex, and there's so many new topics that it's just setting you up for failure if you try to actually memorize it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just up to you if you want. I luckily they're looking at GPAs a little bit less now and more real world experience or something. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a tough situation.
How do you take, like, when you take notes and when you study for exams? What is your method? Are you the type to use your computer and jot notes on your computer, or do you go old fashioned and write down notes?
I go old fashioned and write down on my notebook. I do that because, well, nowadays if you're tech savvy enough and you can write on your computer, go for it because it's much more organized and better.
Mm-hmm.
But what they also found too, this is just from something else, another article. If you type your notes down, you don't memorize it as well. It doesn't become as ingrained versus
I
when you
agree.
actually write it down. I forget the reasoning why, but so I just stick with that pattern of writing down, and it also makes it easier for me to like draw arrows and go wherever I want.
Yeah, yeah. I was the same way in college as well. I found that writing down notes, old fashioned, was the best way to do it. It was really weird because when I would look around, I would be like the only person with my binder out and writing out, writing down notes while everyone was doing it on their laptop or their iPad.
I'm definitely seeing more iPads now. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that when you write it down and you write it in your own wording, you have a better method of understanding the concept, because if you're able to explain the concept to yourself and write it down, that means that, well, that is a good sign that you understand that definition or that topic, and it makes you memorize your own definition better because it's yours.
Yep. Definitely. That's the way I found too.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned that Finland has the best education system in the world.
Yep. Um, Even though um, what is it? I forgot the which Asian countries, but China. I was probably definitely China as like second, third, and fourth, because out there in the eastern countries, they're much more they're much more focused on the great, much more, how do I word it? Repeating, much more specialist. I guess that's the best word. Yeah, bring it back. They're much more
Mhm.
specialized and they repeatedly follow the same questions and they constantly study on these particular exams. And the problem with that in the long run is they are ahead of us in America with academics or those repeating tasks where you're able to, when you repeat on a specific task. But countries like
Mm.
Finland, they were able to find, they were able to be more loose with it. They don't have homework till eighth grade. They have much more freedom. I don't know how it works. This is you asked me earlier about memorizing. This is from a few years ago, but yeah, I can't answer that too. I don't remember it well enough to give you an exact answer. But the general idea is they're just much more ahead by allowing a little more freedom, a little more exploration, and their studying methods are better.
Interesting.
And one more thing I want to say is while out in Asia they're ahead of us in specialized fields. They also are behind when it comes to innovation because while they do,
Really?
yep, what you find is Western countries are able to innovate a little bit better, like show a little more creativity, and a lot of people are actually flying out east to Asia to help innovate, and then they're able to build it, work on something better.
If Finland has such like this amazing education system, and that's like kind of proving, I don't know technically if it's proven to work, but
Oh,
it
one more.
sounds
I'm sorry for interrupting, but there's not
no.
the SAT, but there's some global test, and I say Finland has the best because they score first on that, and then those Eastern countries score like second, third, and fourth. So I just wanted to
Huh,
throw that out too.
that's interesting. I just don't get why surrounding countries and the U.S. why we wouldn't adopt some of these education practices.
Preaching to the choir. We we definitely need oh my god, this is a guess, but I think we're 20s for education. Maybe definitely like past top 10. We're definitely lower, but that's just a big issue we have. That's why magnet schools are starting to try to implement those ideologies, and that's
What are
why
magnet
some are able
schools?
to produce more higher rates going to. Well, it depends on the magnet school. Some fail, some really succeed, but the ones that succeed really succeed.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned magnet schools. I have talked to someone who did go to a magnet school, but I did. But I kind of forgot the general definition of what a magnet school is.
I did too. My elementary years.
Huh.
Yep. I will say I left around second grade, and it probably took. Uh, I don't want to sound smug. Like I'm not a smart kid. Well, not, but
Well,
it took.
you're. Come on now. Don't play yourself down. You're a mechanical engineer.
Eh. But up until all right, I left like second grade. It took till sixth, seventh grade for them to finally catch up to what I was learning in like first, second grade.
What? Really?
It was painful. The teachers would give me it was one for great effort, two for poor, three for the worst. They give me three for every effort, but I still get a one in math because we literally learned this stuff years before. And that's another
What?
flaw with the education system. Is oh shoot, yeah, that's a part of the book too. Um, a problem too is you've probably heard the saying where you can't judge a fish's ability to climb a tree or a monkey's ability to swim versus a fish's ability to swim. And people have their own interests. That's a big factor of generalization. You're able to explore what you want, and once you find what you want, you're able to dive into it more versus the person who started your topic prior because you're more motivated because you actually enjoy it. And in the education system, it's to some people are better at math, some people are better at English, some people are better at science. And we're all forced to go at the same rate and learn at the same rate as everyone around us. So the smart student, even though they want to learn about moving on with like new history topics and delve more into Napoleon, Sparta, or whatever, they're still getting dragged behind by the kids that still aren't as up to date. They're still struggling to learn the Civil War we're on or Revolutionary War, or whatever the topic is. But those kids can still be excelling beyond in the algebra or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So not to say they're dumb, it's just a different. They're more adept to different areas.
Yeah. Um. Now that you speak about our education system, I've been seeing this very common kind of like topic that I see on Facebook sometimes. It's kids from my grade or grade below me. They're always complaining. Well, some are complaining that schools aren't teaching us the fundamentals of life anymore. For example, they don't teach us how to save money. They don't teach us how to do taxes or any of that. Do you believe that those responsibilities are the school's idea? I mean, school's responsibilities, or do you think that's up to people to learn by themselves or from their parents?
I'd say not the parents, because even something like sex ed, a lot of parents fail on.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that. I mean, yeah, for that schools, yes, but like financial
No,
stuff for like adulthood.
yeah, so you're talking about, I get that, taxes, mortgage, owning your house, real world. Um, I don't know. I feel like I want like the go-to answer, like you said, and I've heard that too, is to say yes. We should be learning about taxes. We should be learning about all that stuff too. And I think there should there should be a eh, there should be a course or two on it, but the curriculum's already packed as it is, and I think we should be able to explore more. And I remember in high school, I only had a few courses to be able to actually explore outside of the main curriculum.
Hmm.
So that's tough. I we should they should be teaching us it, but no more than like maybe a class or two.
Like a class session or like an entire semester.
No, like one course for a semester or something.
Oh yeah, I
Not
agree.
yeah.
I agree. But the thing is now, like when you're going out of high school and college, your taxes are so simple. And we have stuff like TurboTax now that does everything for you. All
That
you gotta
too.
do is just look at your W-2 and just give out the numbers, and then you're done in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, so that's why you know what? Yeah, it would be nice if they were able to teach us that stuff, but I'd say no because yeah, it's easy to learn on TurboTax. You can Google it to fill up a firm understanding.
Hmm. And then another problem that I would have with learning about saving is that I feel like a lot of people tell you one way to save, but there's also multiple strategies for saving depending on your goal, and you can't assume a student's goal for the future. I feel like.
That's true too, and it's bad to expect a student to know their future. No high school graduate, you know, we should not assume any high school graduate knows what they want to do for their future. People,
Yes, I
a
agree.
ton of students go into college a year, two in, they switch. A ton of students go into college undecided, and you're only 16 at that age. You don't know what you're doing with your life. I switched my major 3 times in college, and yeah, like, and that should be kind of expected.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Would you switch from?
uh, well, first I started civil engineering, but I never want to be one. If you put down a major versus undecided, you're more likely to be accepted. So, unethical life pro tip right there. And then I switched to MEM, manufacturing and engineering combination, and I was able to explore the manufacturing aspect. I took intro to MEM, hated it, dropped it after 2 weeks, and then I switched to mechanical engineering because it was mechanical engineering is the most broad version of engineering. With a
Mm-hmm.
mechanical degree, you can look into a little bit biomedical. You can look a little bit into the other kinds.
It's a
uh,
generalist. It's a
yeah, like
general.
that's actually part of the reason I picked up the book and I saw it. And it's actually my favorite book. I was like, oh shit, can I swear on this? I'm
Oh
like,
wait,
oh
what?
shit, this
Oh yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
oh good good. Um, but yeah, no, big time. And I needed those 2 years to look around and explore because high school they don't even. Well, maybe it's just a me thing, but my advisor was horrible in guiding me with what I wanted to do with my living or what
In
my
high
career.
school or in college?
High school, college,
Oh,
they have a bigger workload, so I understand. But they've still been helpful, very helpful.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. The first 2 years are vital, which is I feel like the first 2 years of college. you kind of are bound to like the beginner courses, so you're not given much time to explore different avenues of what you want to do, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah, and that's why everybody hates that we're required to take dumb courses the first 2 years that may not apply to our lives. And I do
Hmm.
understand that, but I think we need some time to actually explore. So I do support some of those courses we're required to take.
Yeah, because I was a when I went into college, I wanted to be a computer engineer, but on my second year, when I got into like my computer science classes, that's when I was like, I'm not a fan because I didn't like the coding aspect of it and having to stare at a screen and troubleshoot one problem that was caused by like a comma.
Oh, I bet. And it's good that you were able to actually learn that and figure that out so you had the chance to switch.
Yeah, yeah. I switched right in time because then I switched to business and then jumped through the hoops to get into my major. But I did keep technology in my curriculum by getting a minor in IT, so that
Oh,
was nice.
definitely good. And that's why a little unrelated, huge supporter of public education so people actually have this opportunity to explore what they want to do because 75% of college attendance in like upper end colleges are always from the people who can afford it. And if you're in a poverty area, your high school doesn't give you those AP ECE courses, so even if you have all A's, you won't be considered to Harvard or Yale.
Mm.
And it just gives you the opportunity to actually look around and see if college is even a good fit for you.
Yeah. So going off of going off of the idea of free education, do you think it would be beneficial for high school graduates if if they don't know what they want to do or if they don't have a specific hobby, is to take a gap year from not I mean you don't want to call it a gap year because
Well, I
you're
had a
still
friend who
taking
took a gap
courses.
year where he like took a year off between high school and college. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but like if we're having free education, would it be beneficial for them to take a gap year from going to college to like taking maybe like free community college courses in like different areas?
So you're saying take a year off to look at community college and different courses?
Yeah, so like one course in business, one course in like engineering, one course in finance, just to see if they like it or not, and then they can sign up for a university if they like the college experience or not.
Um, yeah, it shouldn't be a requirement, but by having a free community college to part of the public, it definitely could give students that ability. They should be able to take that because I don't see any downside to them learning that extra bit. So they should
Yeah,
have that option to do it. If somebody really knows they want to be a doctor, there's no point. But the
yeah,
majority of people should be able to have that option to actually explore a little bit.
yeah. I agree. I do like that idea because instead of going to a 4 year university, wasting thousands of dollars on taking courses that you don't even like, and then changing it, and then realizing that those credits don't count, it just drags you deeper into the student debt hole.
I know. I don't know if this stat is related to what I'm going to say or to forces, but I know it's within a margin of error of 50%. But 48% of people don't even use their college degrees. No, wait, hold on. That better be right.
It sounds
What
alright. I feel
percent
like I've read that before.
of people don't use their college degrees? That has to be. Yeah, all right, 40%. Good. But yeah, 40% of people, 2 in 5, don't even use their college degree, yet they still, on average, something like 30,000. I'm not even going to, but they still go out with a lot of debt. I'm not going to throw out numbers I don't know for certain.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's definitely crazy how jobs require you to get a 4 year for require you to have a 4 year degree, but majority of the time in the position that they put you in, you don't even utilize any of it. Yeah, you might know the definitions of like terms that they may use, but you're not using like some concepts from it because I feel like I read somewhere that a lot of the things that we learn in college are outdated by the time that we graduate and enter
Oh,
the
yeah, that's a
workforce.
big part of it. Um, yeah, that just remind me. A big part is the majority of us are being trained for jobs that don't even exist yet.
Hmm. or we're learning old principles that aren't even relevant anymore.
Yep, definitely could see that. Oh, and for the record, I did look up 32,731 is the average college debt when 40% of people don't even use the degree.
It's sad. It's a
Yep.
sad system that we live in.
Oh,
And
it
then
just needs some tweaking.
majority of the time, your salary coming out of college won't even probably help.
Yep. And it's a
pay that
huge
off.
deterrent for people who say want to go to be a doctorate, because then that's even more debt, which
Yeah.
is just, do you want to go through all that debt, all that stress when your whole life you're paying it off even with the higher salary? It's just a huge deterrent, and it definitely diminishes our society. I'd just like to throw out Superman versus Fantastic Four, because that seems interesting. I didn't do it justice earlier when I quickly mentioned it. They did an experiment. People take in the comic book industry. It took 4 writers who knew well about particular genres. They were very specialized in horror or comedy or something. And they found that the one person, once they became an expert in 4 genres of media literature, they beat any number of specialists, no matter how many you throw at them. They're able to write better comic books, be more creative, just produce better work. So I just wanted to do that justice. And one more thing, and another big emphasis is if you're a parent, well, this goes to parents raising kids. Don't force your kid at a young age to do something they don't want to do. If you teach your kid to play the piano, say, playing an instrument at a young age boosts the IQ by an average of 8. So it is good they learn an instrument, but you can't force them to stick with something at a young age. If they switch and move around, they're not a failure. They're not lacking grit. It's not a bad thing. It's just not for them, because by allowing your kid, the great majority of athletes, it's the easiest example to use, but it should be used in the workforce more. But by allowing these people to explore around and find what they want to do, later on in life, proven statistically, they become much better than those who are forced at a younger age to master the certain sport or the certain topic, because they actually enjoy it later on. And even though the person had the head start, they're able to surpass that in no time by the age of 15 when it's compared to when it's used among kids.
Do you have a podcast of your own that you would like to shout out right now?
I do.
Any social medias either too?
Oh, perfect. Check me out. If you're in the CT region, FM 91.7, but more importantly, check out The Way podcast with host Bill Trofesky. Follow on Instagram, Twitter to stay up to date. Check out on Spotify or any of them. There's a website on the Twitter, but it's on 10 different apps. Although the show is on hold, and it's been on hold, because the coronavirus blocking out the studio. So it will start back up hopefully soon. Check it out. Thank you.
All right. Check them out, guys. Thanks so much for joining me on this podcast, Bill.
Thanks for having me. Love to talk about generalists.
Yeah, no problem.
And education. Definitely two big things that overlap and everyone needs to know.